first by Commissioner Chamberlain.
If everyone would please rise and join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll ask for a statement of belief in the opening prayer by Commissioner Christensen.
Our dear kind Father in heaven, we are extremely grateful for the opportunity to be here today. We're grateful for our beautiful town and grateful for, most importantly, the people in which reside. That's a special blessing to be upon those that work in our city government. They'll be given the energy and strength and let them know of our appreciation for them. Also, that's a special blessing to be upon those that serve in our military and our armed forces, that they'll be looked after. And please bless their families for their service. And pray that we'll be inspired and led, and that we will make sound judgment. I'm grateful again for this beautiful piece of heaven in which we're able to reside, and pray that we will be able to serve the people of this community well. Say this in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Now we'll open it up if somebody wants to have a statement of belief or anything. Thank you. And then disclosures or declarations of conflict from any of the commissioner members from tonight's agenda. Everybody okay? Okay, well, thank you. I'll move to item B, approval of the agenda order. Do you have an approval for how the agenda is
I
printed?
move that we approve the agenda order.
Okay, we got
A second.
an approval in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, reports from the planning commissioners. Does any planning commissioner have anything that they want to report or share with us or the audience tonight? Did I miss it?
C.
Oh, the consent of,
approve the minutes from last.
I'm sorry. Let me back up to C. Thank you for keeping me on track. Review and possible approval of the meeting minutes from April 9th, 2025, the planning commission meeting. I was not here, so I'll have to abstain. We have an approval, corrections.
I wasn't here either, so I'll have to abstain.
I thought it looked good. I did find Darren is spelled wrong on D or page 1, D4. It's Daring. And then I wanted to verify there's a Dale in there on page 2, 1A. I've never seen that last name before, and I was wondering if his last name is Rasmussen. Does anybody know a Dale Rasmussen in Tokerville? Yeah. Do you think that's him? I just want to make sure his name's spelled right.
I'll have to ask Mary. She probably got it off the sign-in sheet and maybe it wasn't
And it may
legible,
have
but
been
I'll tell her to
unclear
correct that.
handwriting.
Yeah.
But other than that, everything looked correct to me. So I move that we approve them with those two items.
I second it.
We got approval in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All abstain? Another extension. Okay, then, we'll go to item number D, reports, planning commissioners. Ask once again, if you have anything that you want to share, talk about. Thank you. We'll go to item 2, planning and zoning administrator, Emily.
Nothing other than what's on the agenda tonight. Just been working on these things.
Okay, thank you. Assistant city manager, Darren.
So we are, as everybody can see, things are moving along, engineering, a lot of projects. IME automations out on Anderson Junction Road. Basically, we had a pre-construction meeting, so they are starting on their underground, such meaning connections to the water, the culinary water, the sewer, and doing all their civil site improvements. And does include their building. So at the same time, you'll see probably in the next, they're hoping to have that done by the end of the year. And open for business by then, and moving their existing operation. I think it's in Laverne or Hurricane to the new Tokerville facility. So that's kind of an exciting thing for them. We also are basically, you can see that Boulder Ridge is still moving a lot of rocks. They're pulling out. I've heard today they have a fairly substantial size of boulder out there. They're just chipping away at it. So they're moving along well. The Sapp Brothers is still trying to move along. There's all kinds of things that they're trying to complete before the fall. They're shooting to try to open in fall. UDOT, they've still got some UDOT requirements that they're currently working through with UDOT. And so that's moving forward. If you've seen the north tie-in, it's a temporary tie-in. It's basically has no public access. It's just for Firelight and them to be able to show their subdivision to potential buyers. The other thing, we've still got you'll see the cut still going. We're moving ahead basically on the schedule of the contractor. He promised, I believe, 100 days from when he started, which was a couple months ago. Seems like they're moving a lot faster this time. I counted one day, there was about 20 trucks going back and forth, just roughly. I could have counted the same one twice or something like that because they're all kind of black. But yeah, they're moving along pretty quickly, getting that material, helping to hopefully get the dust down as quickly as possible and get that tie-ins done. Everything else is moving good. We're still receiving applications. We had our joint utility meeting on a regular basis now. It was kind of hit or miss there for the last couple months. And so, but now we've actually have applications. Firelight's moving forward with some other things. And on your agenda tonight, you'll be talking about some of that. So unless you guys have some other information for me, I hope to have some pictures and updates for you next meeting. I just have not had time to get out and actually shoot some photos of the progress of those projects.
Any questions from Darren? Thank you, Darren.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll go to item 3, business item. 1, discussion and possible recommendation on a nightly rental application submitted by Kathy and Ray Vance, tax ID T-168G. Lot currently zoned is multiple use MU20. Emily, we got a report on that?
Sure.
We have a staff report that was given to us.
So, yep, you saw your staff report. This is a complete application. Kathy and Ray Vance live down in the Shangri-La Valley. I'll pull up the site plan for that house. They were also on the waiting list for a nightly rental, and another one became available, so we're reviewing that application now. The fire safety inspection was approved with conditions. So I don't know if you saw the emails that I sent you yesterday, but John just said, same thing we're saying is that some of the aspects of the property, not the home itself, are non-conforming. The driveway is pretty steep. We usually only allow a 15% grade, and it's kind of got that hairpin turn to get into it, as you can see, and then another one down halfway down the hill. So if that becomes a problem, access or volume of calls, then they're just reserving the right to change that decision if necessary. So that's something to consider when you make your decision. Other than that, everything's complete. They did recently remodel it, so they have a certificate of occupancy. Everything's up to code in the structure, like I said. They don't own any other nightly rentals within the city, and they are 500 feet from any other legal nightly rentals. So the zoning is MU20 as well. That's another thing that's non-conforming. Usually in MU20, you can only have one dwelling per 20 acres, but that was changed after this house was built. And so in terms of the zoning, it's also legal non-conforming. Just consider those things when you make your recommendation.
How many acres is that lot?
I think it's 8.5,
8.5 acres.
if I believe. That's right.
Okay.
Emily gave a great summary. I'll expand on that a little bit. So as she said, this house, historically, it's a legal non-conforming structure. So with legal non-conforming structures, they can continue as is unless you change the use or the structure itself, right? So here, the applicant will be changing the use. Historically, it's been used as a single-family residential home. Now it will be used as a nightly rental, so different use. When you take a non-conforming structure and you change the use, that means that structure has to come into compliance with city code. So it's no longer grandfathered, right? So the one aspect of the city code that it doesn't meet currently is the driveway requirements. So your city code has requirements about the length of the driveway, the width, the grade. Planning Commission can make an exception. So you guys can evaluate the application, decide that circumstances warrant allowing an exception to that driveway requirement. But in doing so, you have to consider the input from the fire marshal. So at a minimum, you'd have to impose the conditions stated in, the letter you received from the fire marshal. And then you might also want to consider, any other considerations that he brought up, but maybe didn't put as express conditions or any other concerns that you have. So just some food for thought in approaching this.
Thank you. So I went down there because of the reports and everything and met with Kathy, walked it. I did find another area that she can put in a secondary access that would go by their main house and come through. There is already a road there. It can be improved. I've asked her to get a hold of the fire and meet out there and just to put in a secondary, which is level, wide enough, has a turn for the fire trucks to turn around and puts it right there in the house. So they have two ways in and out. And so Kathy related to me that she would like to bring the fire department back out there and just see exactly what they want. And before they go ahead and put that in, that road's there. But in code, you have to have a road that will withstand a 50,000 pound fire truck,
Right.
which is a requirement, which is basically 6 inches of number 2 road base. You basically build a road to it. And so I think that would be a good thing to maybe add as a recommendation, that they go through with that, and that way they can get as many fire trucks, ambulances, and everything down there. And then I also looked at, they have about a 3 million gallon pond there that they already put dry fire hydrants in for the fire department. That typically when a fire department goes to a fire, they go to the hydrant, drop their hoses and run down to where the fire is, which would be right down the road from them. And so they would be able to have extra fire hoses and water already there, more than capable of any fire truck. Everybody knows a fire truck doesn't carry that much water.
How far away would the hydrant be located from the property?
If they put, the other house is probably about 500 feet where the road goes through,
Okay.
But-
Fire code does require
250.
250, right? So that's something you might consider. I know that
I-
there was some conditions attached to the approval that came from the fire department, but that might be something that commission considers as a condition, a fire hydrant within 250 feet. And like you said, a secondary access, because I think that was the other concern, was lack of turnaround.
And I think it would be easy. It would be quite an expense for them to run what we call a dry pipe, and right from that pond, because a fire truck comes up to that pond, hooks up, and then puts a pumper truck there, and then pumps down. But we'd want the fire department to say what they thought. But I think that would be over and beyond anybody else's requirements. But I'm willing to go meet with them and see, or even with Darren and the building department.
Is this something we can table until we get some more
I think we
information?
could just put it in there as on there because they have a time frame. I don't think it needs to be tabled because the fire department already approved it with the stipulations that they can withdraw it if they have a problem.
Okay.
And that's very clear right there.
Yeah,
with
that's
it.
true.
That was going to be my question. Is it okay to approve it
Yeah.
with that stipulation in
Right, with that
place?
stipulation in
Okay.
there. And Emily, I just lost myself.
And you want to open the public hearing too for this one?
Okay. We'll go to item A, 1A, public hearing. Public input on the nightly rental submitted by Kathy and Ray Bentz. The same property. Anybody have any public comment or concerns and everything else? Okay, then we'll close the public comment period at this time.
died on the mayor last week.
I lost the whole thing.
You may have lost the whole thing. Can you share with me?
Yeah, I know what.
Hey, you can.
Okay, I'll share it off, and I have the agenda right here. Okay, so no public comment. We'll close that public comment. Do we have any questions more from the, or can I entertain a motion? If not, I will make a motion that we recommend approval as per staff recommendation with the requirements from the fire marshal, the fire department, saying that they have the authority to have it shut down if they have a problem. I would suggest that we recommend that they put in that secondary access.
So I think as far as conditions go, you either want a condition or not, right? You don't want it to be an option. So I think that's something we need to maybe further discuss. Do we want it to be a condition that they put in the secondary access? Because I think it needs to either be an express condition or not.
Well, I'll stick my head out and probably piss people off because it costs some money that they put that secondary access down through their property and right through the field, right up to the house. I'll put that.
That's the only way to bring it within city code, right?
Well, that makes it a lot better to what fire code.
It's fire code.
It's already city code.
Right.
The house has already been redone and up to city code and everything else.
Okay, so
I have a concern about the fire hydrant being that far away.
Yeah.
That was a concern for me as well.
I
It
just
is a
think 500 feet
potential
is
liability
yeah.
concern for the city, right?
Right.
So it is a condition you could impose, placing a fire hydrant within that 250 feet. That's up to you guys. You guys are required to at least impose the conditions that the fire marshal set forth, which he just reserved the right to revoke the permit. But you guys can go beyond that if you would like. It's up to you.
Yeah, and if you know the layout of the land, it's really hard to put a fire plug into the city system. Darren would tell you the switch back up there and everything going down and thing. And I think with the fire department already saying that they have the authority to pull it, that's enough. And then if they want to put it on there, if they pull it, I say give them a chance to operate. And before you put something on, because that fire hydrant could cost them into the $10,000 or more. And everybody else, my house is 7/10 of a mile away, and I have no fire.
True, but
That's
you're
right.
also not asking to be a vacation rental. So
I have a
Putting
question.
house,
I have a
that's the
question
problem.
here, just about fire safety in general. Since there aren't hydrants down there anyway, and there's been residential dwellings there all this time.
Yeah,
I mean,
just so you know, Angela, and I'm not sure if you're aware, the city did a project there with the Parkway when we had to relocate the water line going to the heights.
Okay.
There was a water line put down and multiple fire hydrants put out throughout that Shangri-La Valley.
Okay, I didn't know that. Thanks.
So so they now have 8-inch water
So they
line
do
plus
have them, they're
that.
just not close.
It's just not close to that
Oh,
house
okay.
by any means. And to take that fire hydrant down their driveway and down, as Dean was talking about, will cost X amount of dollars. I don't know what the cost would be.
So that was my main question is, it says approved with conditions. What are the conditions? And so far you've mentioned the fire safety and the driveway. Are those the only two?
That's it. That's it.
Okay.
Yes, those are the only two to answer your
Okay.
question.
Um,
And then in terms of fire safety, right, there's a few different considerations there. There's the fire hydrant, the turnaround. Those are, potential additional conditions that you could impose.
okay, so I've seen their pond down there. I think it's a pretty good measure of
Water.
fire safety already. So
What do you mean?
what I mean,
just because there's available water
Yeah.
doesn't mean that getting
so
it
they
from
could
A
stop
to
it at the
B.
dry pipe that you
Right.
mentioned.
Has to be
The idea is accessible, right?
Yeah.
And that road they put in would be accessible. If they put a dry pipe in, they could put a dry pipe in, but I would suggest that the fire department tell them, what would
Yeah.
be the best solution.
I'm just looking at that home that was just out on the north side that burned all the way down because they didn't have access to water from the hydrant, and it was having to be trucked back and forth.
And we've
And that was
had
a
a
total
fire
loss.
on this street, on
Yeah.
Old Church Road, we've had a fire and it was a nightly rental. And that one, the water in the street wasn't big enough, but
Mhm.
I think it was
Yeah.
a 6 and now it's an 8.
Yeah, yeah.
So if they have
yeah.
an 8,
It's-
Which way is more expensive, the dry pipe from the pond
Oh,
or
no, the dry pipe's a lot cheaper.
Oh.
We're putting in a dry pipe.
Some people also put in sprinkler systems, but I think that can be pretty cost prohibitive
those are
too.
pretty costly.
So your condition can be that they maybe come into compliance with fire code, whatever the fire department decides that is.
That's a good way to
Yeah,
put
I
it.
I
Emily.
agree
That's a
with
good
that.
way to
I
do
was
it.
about to agree, but then.
Yeah.
That would, yeah, that would be different than what is currently proposed. So currently, the right to revoke the license has been,
Then I'll amend my motion just to.
yeah, so if you want to amend it to say, make a motion to recommend approval, provided that they come into compliance with the fire code, you can do that. And then say something to the effect that you're making an exception to the driveway requirement on these conditions.
Yeah.
Well, I would make it just as the staff reviews that we would amend it to what the fire chief wants. He has the right to refuse it at a time. And that's what he's asking for at this time. He's not asking, it doesn't comply and it's non-conforming and everything, but I can tell you 90% of the town is probably non-conforming. But 90% of the
Yeah.
town isn't putting.
Vacation rental in their home.
Yeah, and it's also, it's different when somebody comes to the city with an application, then it's the city's job to evaluate whether it complies with code, right? It might be the
Right.
situation that we have properties out there that don't comply, but when you bring an application before the city, that's a time to evaluate compliance with city code.
So
I have been really, really concerned about this because of the driveway and the ability to get a fire truck down that hill. I just feel like I'm glad he says he could revoke it, but all it takes is one fire call where the house is burning down and the truck can't get down the driveway.
and that's why I suggest.
And then,
just
sure,
putting
you
a
can revoke it, but we've had huge property damage. And I guess that's a risk that the Bences are willing to take since they're here. If you have any comments, we'd love to hear your thoughts on
I was
it.
just-
Why don't you stand up?
Yeah, I was just
Cover the
going to
mic.
say, I'd like to
Thank
talk
you.
to the Bences.
Thank you.
Let them talk.
So because of some unfortunate things that happened at that house, we've had the fire trucks down there
Oh, okay.
and they've gone down that driveway. You guys might know about that child that got shot himself. They had the fire trucks down there. And all the fire truck has to do is go past the driveway and turn around, and then it's almost a straight shot down. So we've had that. They can also go down our driveway and drive straight to the house. So there's a road that runs through those woods.
And
there's
is there
already
water, if they were there for needing water?
Well, there's a
that
hydrant
access?
up on the road, right? Dean, is within
Yeah,
reach.
but it's not within code.
No.
And it's too far away. But
But we could pay for a hydrant if we had to. I don't know if we're allowed to do that.
So help me, doesn't that road actually fall on like a north slope part of it? Doesn't some of it have a north slope to it?
I don't-
Like where wintertime it's not getting sun if there was ice on it? If I remember. I've
No,
gone
well,
down
it's the
that
same,
road.
it's the same road as we have on our road. And I've not,
What do you mean it's the same road?
it's the same type of road that goes down to our house.
To Shangri-La?
Yeah, the road that
It's
goes down.
similar slope. Ice wasn't a concern for
No,
me
it's,
because of
I've
the
never,
lack of
in all
snow
the
and
time
ice
we've
here.
been here.
I'm significantly relieved to hear that you've had fire trucks down
Yeah,
there
we've had two
before.
fire trucks.
And I think that's a good reason for
And,
us to.
and to go, and then they had, somebody made a mistake one time and thought they were heading down to the Litchfields and went down to the house with a fire truck. So I know on 2 occasions they've had fire trucks down. Now, if you had a hook and ladder truck, but you couldn't get to our house with that, so.
And when you have people coming, will you be leaving the gate open? The gate to the driveway?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I went to look yesterday and it was gated off, so I wasn't able to even get close to the.
Yeah, we would keep that, we don't even close our gates. And I think they just did that to keep people off of it because we had it re-slurried.
Oh, okay.
So other than that, I know somebody closed it. It wasn't, I don't think it was
It's
us.
not typically closed.
One of the problems we have is that event center that they have, people drive to our house and down there thinking they're going to the event center. And I've talked to Tyler about it. It's a real problem.
we have the same problem.
Yeah, and he has the same problem.
I saw that you have a nice clear signage of your house number there, so maybe.
No, they still come down.
more signage for.
Yeah, we had like
water
8 people one night. And I don't get mad at them because it's not their fault, but I said, Tyler, bring somebody out here, put a sign in front of our house. But they see the event center and there's our gate, instead of having to go around, they just say, well, we're going down here. So I've caught them in the woods driving around. So, but anyway, but I've had fire trucks down there.
Okay.
And you can't go past it, go around the circle and come back up, and then you're right, angled right there. So if that helps. So, now I don't know about the hydrant.
I think the fire chief must know better than we do if he's willing to accept that risk.
So I can tell you it violates a few provisions of the fire code, but that being said, it's the fire marshal's discretion as far as whether he's
Yeah.
going to sign off on it or not. From a liability perspective, we're always supposed to let the city know, like, here are your concerns, right? I mean, we have two different things that are being weighed here. You know, personal knowledge that a fire truck could get down there, but really from a liability perspective, you know, it comes down to, do we comply with the code? And, you know, a hydrant is required within 250 feet, and so is a turnaround. So those are, but, you know, like you said, the fire marshal has approved it, and at a minimum, you're just required to impose his conditions. It's up to you guys to impose additional conditions. So that's a decision for you to make.
Yeah, I'd be willing to entertain a motion with the turnaround or the second driveway and a hydrant. I don't know that I'm interested in having either one of those off the table.
My main concern is
As far
access
as-
to water for the fire truck.
That's
That's my primary.
Well, what I would suggest then is that we put that secondary access through, which the road's already there, he just has to improve it. And then put a dry pipe, which he has already put in his pond for the fire department, because they required that for his house. They required him to sprinkle his house. He's probably the only one sprinkled in here. But the other new house does not require sprinklers, but just put the dry pipe in so it comes within 250 feet. And then they can just hook it up, and then they can fight the fire from there.
Yeah, it's up to you guys as far as,
Yeah.
you know,
That's
conditions you want
probably
to
what
put.
he was
Yeah, that's
thinking,
really what
right?
I'm thinking, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, as long as there's access to water.
Is that your motion then?
Yeah, I'm trying to think how to form that.
Wait, I'm not sure I understood what you said, though. Can you repeat it?
You probably ought to make a clear motion, somebody.
Yeah, it needs to
Because
be on
you
record.
made a motion and then you started talking about it. You probably should have
You want me to?
waited for a second
Let
or
me say
something.
that motion again. That we have the requirements of the fire marshal, what he put in there, that he can remote it at any time. But then we put the secondary road access down below up to the property, and that he puts a dry pipe from the pond to the house within 250
Within
feet.
250 feet with a hydrant, yeah.
With 250 feet. A dry pipe with a hydrant, then they can hook it up, or a lot of times they don't want a hydrant there, they just want their hookup where they can put their knobs on their
Sure.
hoses.
Yeah, just
Access
so you
access
know, just so you know, that's what they call a standpipe, not a,
A standpipe.
it's not a fire, it's not a fire
It's not a
hydrant.
hydrant.
Yeah, the
No.
standpipe, yeah, with the
So the
standpipe.
hydrant would have water.
Yeah.
As long as it works.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
my motion.
You're recommending.
Wait, are
You're
you
recommending
recommending to
approval?
approve based on
Okay.
that?
With those
Recommend
conditions,
approval
yeah.
With those conditions.
Okay, I'll second that then.
Yes.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to business item E2, discussion possible recommendation on a general plan amendment application submitted by Jason Harris of Fieldstone Homes. The application purpose, modify the future land use map to update the designation for tax ID number partial T-3-0-22-3212-BR2 from commercial to residential. This may allow the area to support various residential uses, including the R1-12, R1-15, R1-20, RM-1, and RM-2 zoning. Staff?
Yep. So Fieldstone Homes submitted this application. Jerry is here. They're an agent of him because it is in the Boulder Ridge development. And like Dean said, they're asking to change a portion of that to residential within the general plan so that they can then apply for a zone change if they would want to change it to any of our residential zones. All it would do is change our future land use map to show residential in that area instead of commercial. Currently, it's zoned business and manufacturing. But he's stating in his application, as you saw, that he thinks the property's highest and best use in that area is residential to support the other commercial that will be going in. The traffic study did take into account potentially residential being out there, so they did think about that when they were looking at infrastructure and things like that, which hasn't been installed yet, but it is planned. Derek could speak to that more if you have questions about it. There are specific things in the code, as you saw in your agenda item sheet, that you do have to consider when looking at a general plan amendment. You want to make sure that it complies with all 9 of those standards. So I don't know if you want to speak to them each individually or if you have questions about them as you were reading through his application paperwork. I also put in information there from the general plan about the moderate income housing element, just to kind of show you where it did maybe take into consideration something like this, depending on how you interpret it. And then just a little bit more information about kind of what those 9 criteria mean. A lot of them were covered in like the traffic study, which Darren could answer questions about, and spot zoning, which I kind of gave you a definition there to look at, just isolating a parcel that has a different zoning pattern than those around it. I think it's BLM that's behind that, so it's just on the border of our city boundaries. So I don't know if you have any questions for me specifically or for Darren or the property owner, if you want me to expand on anything else.
Okay.
I have some questions. What is meant by island or peninsula in number 2 of the 9 items? What it
So
means to me?
what's meant by that is, say you have an area that's designated one zone and you just rezone one little small parcel in the middle of that, that would be creating an island or peninsula. There's actually provisions of the state code that say that alone can't be evidence that, you can't approve the zone change or hear the general plan amendment change. But it's something that your code has to consider.
Yeah, seems like, why would that not be a little island in the middle of the
That would be
commercial
spot-
zoning?
Spot zoning, pretty much, wouldn't it? Yeah. with the-
Yeah, that's the idea so I think it's important to consider more than just does it create a peninsula, but, do you have this property within the middle of, property that's not zoned similarly, that's going to create all these adverse effects? For instance, would you create a nuisance by throwing residential in the middle of commercial because maybe these people live next door to these bright commercial lights and all this sound and traffic? That's kind of the idea here.
Yeah.
Is
I also,
considering the
the
effects
first thing
of what you're
too
doing.
is,
Go ahead, he'll have his chance.
I just want to be here.
Yeah,
Oh,
he'll have his
okay.
chance.
Thank you.
So I have a problem with 4 of these different. The first one is that it meets a recognized and demonstrated need. I think the Firelight subdivision takes care of any need we have for housing like that. That's just my personal opinion, but I'd like to be, see some proof on that. And then,
Was this designed to be more low-income type of housing, or? It looks
It's
like
not
more-
designed yet at all. They have some concepts for us,
Okay.
but really at this point, they're only asking for a general plan amendment because we have very restrictive
Yeah.
rules about, you can't even ask for a zone change unless the general plan says that you may ask for a zone change.
Well, first, the problem here, if we're backing up a little bit, so he has to amend the general plan because currently residential housing isn't contemplated. And so his area is currently designated as commercial. It needs to be designated as residential before we could give him a zone change for a zone that's only allowed in residential. That's the hang up here. So we're like you said, we're 2 levels out here.
Right.
but I have a little bit of concern because our general plan and our master plan was based on a survey done by the residents that live here in Tokerville. And they expressed different opinions on this. So they expressed they wanted to keep a lower density rather than a higher density for housing in general for Tokerville. So in my mind, I'd really have to see your reasoning behind wanting to put more housing right in the middle of a commercial zone.
How many acres are required for an MPDO?
100.
Okay.
And to clarify, the highest density we allow in our code right now is 10 units per acre. So that would be
That's an RM2.
correct.
Right.
Which is what the drawing simulated.
Close to it.
Pretty close.
It was close. It was asking for 12 per acre, but that's above what we would even allow.
Correct.
Yeah.
Are we,
Any other?
do we want to discuss before the public?
Yeah, it seems
Hearing,
like we're
or
a
do
little
we
bit,
want
we're
to have
not
the
really
public
going in a
meeting and
direction right
discussion?
now, other than just.
You want to open up, we can open up the public comment and then address back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, is that okay with the commissioners?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd
Okay,
like to hear
so
from-
let's go to item
E2.
2E2A, public hearing, public input sought by the general plan amendment application submitted by Jason Harris of Fieldstone Homes. The application proposal modified future land use map to update the designation for tax ID T-1-0-22-3212-BR2 from commercial to resident. This may allow the area to support various residential uses, including the R1-12, R1-15, R1-20, RM1, and RM2 zoning districts. We'll open up for public comment. We have any public comment at this time? Anybody want to comment this? Going once, going twice? Okay, we will close public comment and then we'll open it back up.
When you say reopen it back up, you mean we'll move back into discussion?
What's that?
You mean we'll move back into the discussion?
Yeah.
I didn't hear you.
Oh, I just said, when you say open it back up, you mean we'll move back into the discussion, right?
Discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, I think one of my biggest concerns is when I look at industrial parks, and there are residential, there's high density on the skirts of them. I can't recall any high density residential that sits right in the middle of an industrial park in our area. And that's including St. George, and 20 some years of delivering in the area. To me, that would feel pretty ugly.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
over in Hurricane, they have a lot of industrial area and a lot of dense housing right next to it. And I don't think it's that ugly.
I would encourage you to look too. It's currently zoned BMP. These are our uses in BMP. It's not maybe what you would think of when you think of business and manufacturing. It's very close to our highway commercial. So that's just something to consider.
And when I was looking at that, to me, those are the kind of businesses where when you see development happen, typically the residential develops first because they need to have a customer base for those businesses to appear. So to me, this seems more of a natural growth formula to have some residential out there first. If we are going to have dense housing in our county, in our town, I would prefer it to be out by the freeway and somewhere close where it would have, like if the businesses do grow in conjunction with them, then we would have a small community of people out there who could be here to give public input on what businesses they'd like to see in future planning commission meetings. So that's one thought I have on this. And I understand that we're all a little overwhelmed and distressed about the sheer level of growth that our community is going to be experiencing with all the things that are going on with Firelight. However, in the state of Utah, it's my understanding that we have been between 30 and 45,000 units short in housing that's considered affordable in our state. My daughter is a young adult that works in the community. She makes $12.50 an hour. So if she's living with me and I'm happy to have her here. But if she were working full-time, she'd be making about $2,000 a month. And I saw some apartments for rent yesterday in Hurricane that are new by Interstate Homes. The 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom home rents for $1,900 a month. And the 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home rents for $2,300 a month. To afford a home in the median income home price, the median home price in Washington County is $522,000 as of April of this year. A buyer would need to make $102,000 a year at current interest rates with 5% down and no other debt to do that. According to the Utah Population Committee at the Kempsey Gardner Policy Institute, migration is driving more of the growth in Utah. So not only are our children trying to compete for these homes, but we are competing with people moving in here from they are going to be competing. And from what I have seen in my own family, all of my husband's siblings have moved out of state. And the housing affordability has been a huge issue for them. So this is an issue that's very close to my heart, and I apologize for getting emotional, but my dad gets emotional, and it's fine. It's fine for us to do things that matter to us. So when we say, does it need a recognized and demonstrated need in the community? I feel that from the evidence that I have examined, that it meets a very serious, very vital, very dramatic need that our county is experiencing and that our statewide is experiencing. Also, I think if we're considering whether it can create an island or a peninsula, I think that that's more for something like, say we had an existing residential neighborhood and someone wanted to change the zoning inside that to like industrial or a big business. To me, that's what spot zoning or a weird peninsula is. If there is nothing developed around it, then it's still, to me, it's kind of a blank slate. And if you look at that map, there is housing, there's already residential housing out there. The residential housing out by that freeway exit was there before all the other stuff that has started to develop. And so to me, I don't think that this would constitute an island or a peninsula. And I don't want to work my way down the list by myself. I want to hear what other people have to say, but I did have something to say on those first two.
Well, I'll speak on the island and the peninsula because this is commercially zoned, or the zone would be up properly. And you just reversed it the other way when you show the thing. It's still by itself out there. And I'll agree with you. I am housing 3 of my grandkids, married grandkids, everything else. It is a problem, affordability to be able to get in and everything else. But I will come back and state that originally the master plan or the plan was put in place for the areas in place. And this was put in before the general plan. It's part of it and everything else. I'm not going to disagree. There is a need for affordable housing. The whole system of the United States has got a way to provide that. But I do say, I've done this many times and I see it constantly. It just doesn't mix when you have a housing and a commercial, you got traffic. I'm tired of seeing every day up north, and thankfully it's not happening here, where people are getting hit and things. And when you have a community where you have commercial and industrial working, and then you put residential there, I mean, I've seen it. I've seen where right next to it, like you said, Hurricane and stuff, and then kids, I saw it the other day, a little kid riding a bike right down the road. And there's trucks coming right out of the industrial park right there on the backside. And I go, oh man, where's the parents? Don't they care? And they probably don't even know. But it just doesn't mix, and it's not good public safety. The other thing is, yes, are we providing housing in our community? Yes, we have a big jump in housing. And then are we, you also got to look at the effects of what you have to provide residential, takes a lot of services to provide in services. Usually when you get the lower density, I hate to say it, the rentals and stuff come in. You just saw today on the news before you came, a house with 27 people in that they arrested. That people are stacking in housing because they can't afford it. They're bringing family in. I can tell you half of my friends, every basement in this community is housing a family member or married couples and things like that. I do look at it that it's supposed to comply with the 9 requirements. I don't see it meeting 7 of them at all. So there's a big problem. I know this was brought up in a concept to us before, and we talked about it. I knew it was going to come back. We actually directed them to come back and bring it through the proper channels, things like that. I don't think it fits our requirements. It doesn't fit our general plan. It's not a good area for out there when you mix this with it, and that's my feelings.
I have a couple. I agree with what Commissioner Chamberlain said, that there's a huge housing problem here. I'm a real estate professional, so I see it every day. And I see the next generation being priced out of the housing market. It's a complex national problem, though. And what I've noticed is, and I've never seen this before, and I'm not sure if it's ever happened before, usually the interest rates will offset the price of housing, or the other way around. Right now, we've got high interest rates and high cost of housing combined, and that's what's pricing everybody out right now. So unfortunately, what I've been able to observe is building more high-density housing is not lowering the cost of housing. It goes up every single month. It keeps going up and up. So if I knew that by doing that, we could actually lower the cost of housing, I would be all for it. I just think the problem's a lot more complex than that, as far as lowering the cost of housing. That's my perspective on it.
Well, and it seems to me that the question that's at issue here is, are we going to allow housing of any type in the middle of this industrial zone? Not whether or not we're going to have high density housing in Tokerville. That's what's at issue. We need to decide, are we going to allow for this change? And maybe, I mean, you made a good point. Maybe that is a good place to do it. If we're going to do some high density housing, but do we then need to stipulate that? Is that what we're going to do here? Because there's nothing in here saying what type of housing they're going to do. We're just going to change it. Is that right?
And they have a concept here, but us changing the general plan, amending the general plan to allow for this is not giving them permission to build what this concept is.
Right.
This is just us saying we're open to the idea of residences out there.
Okay.
We don't have to grant a zone change later. We can discuss it farther along the line. Another thing I wanted to bring up about the general plan is if you look at page 8, it talks about open house preference selection. 2 of the top things that we wanted to preserve in our community are open space and agriculture. And one of the best ways to preserve those is not to take up 1/4 to 1/2 of an acre for every single house that you build for your population. So it's one of those things where you have 2 sticks. You have open space with dense housing, or nice big lots and no open space. And you have to pick which stick you want if you want to preserve the open space that way. I don't think number 3, I think it doesn't materially adversely affect established use on contiguous properties because there are no established uses out there. It does not result in over-intensive land use or excessive depletion of natural resources because, again, there's nothing out there right now. And they would, if they were to develop anything, they would have to go through all the proper channels of the water district and the fire district and the city would have to charge them impact fees. And some of the things that they've already done have already considered if this were to happen. there are no services out there at this time, but those things are things that develop along with the growth if the growth does happen.
Well, I can tell you we have a water problem. And
We
so
do.
that's a
That's
natural-
countywide. Yeah.
We have a water problem. Everybody has a water problem.
Yeah.
And we have one worse. And so that is a natural resource, and that's depleting that natural resource for the uses. I wish that, and I'm going to bring it up to the next one, that,
That's number 8 on the
Yeah.
list.
go ahead.
Oh, we don't have to go through them. We can talk about them one at a time. The traffic study has been done, taking this into consideration. And I think you're right about the water. The water is an issue, but every home that's been developed in our county for the last 100 years has had to consider the water. And we are developing water in our community right now.
Any other comments, questions, concerns?
What were the results of the traffic study?
So the traffic study essentially, it piggybacked two other traffic studies, the Snap Brother truck stop, and then a project outside the actual city limits of Solara, which is in the county. So in the design of the subdivision for phase 1, actually Boulder Ridge has met and exceeded on 2 or 3 of the roads for what their requirements are. In the actual traffic study, it took into account for the I think it's 800 homes, 700 homes, something like that, as well as 2 hotels and a gas station and a couple of other, and some other up to the acreage of the commercial properties. So those roads, infrastructure have been sized to accommodate that in the future for like water, the water pipes, the things such as that. And, we are part of the RSWA. Is that right? The acronym, the Washington County Water.
Regional Water Supply.
there you go.
Yes,
Thank
you
you.
had the right acronym.
Yeah, Regional Water Supply Agreement, which we work with with the district. The same thing is we're getting, we do have to conserve water. We have to be mindful of the water. But at this point, that's why we've established water efficiency standards, those types of things, like somebody was saying here that half-acre lots and quarter-acre lots, I think it was Jenny.
They're the least water efficient.
Those are so inefficient in water conservation. And a lot of what you see out at Firelight's going to be some of the most efficient stuff in the county, as well as what they're building in their current Sun River projects down there. Water districts gives them praise all the time on their latest phases that they're building of how efficient they are in water, all through the summer. And so there are means and methods and things that we're not, because if we just put our blinders on and don't look down the road 20 years for water, we'll be out of water and we'll run out of water quickly. But, some of those things. So anyway, as far as maybe a little bit more than what you wanted to know on the traffic study, sorry.
No, that answered my question. I appreciate that. I feel like the Firelight is providing the housing need in our community in the future with the future phases, because they are putting in several townhomes.
Yeah, they are, but there's marketing is to the senior citizens. You're not marketing. to-
55 and older.
Yeah, so they're providing an access, and you hit a point very articulately and I appreciate your comments on the price range. Having been in that business and sold houses for the last 25 years, I have been amazed at the influx of people from other states, especially the last 5 years.
Yeah, definitely.
Driving what you just talked about was the prices aren't coming down because out-of-staters will pay it.
Yeah.
Would you recognize
What would
yourself?
Oh, hi, I'm Jerry Eves. I was here last time. We talked about this and it was suggested I come back for an amendment. A couple of things to address that I'd like to comment on as you went through the list. It is an adjustment to the master plan. Do you know what's planned and approved there and why it was zoned that? Anybody?
What was the question again?
Do you realize what the zoning requirement is and why it was planned that way in the beginning? Do you know why that zone exists on that property?
Well,
Go ahead.
my understanding is that we wanted to keep the industrial and commercial stuff out closer to the freeway and away from
Very good.
this
So
area here.
I had that
Exactly.
approved about 14 years ago for 6 of those 500-foot tall wind turbines. It was approved in Washington County first. I didn't want to see the tax revenue of that go to the county. I wanted that to see it come to Hurricane City or Tokerville. And so I'm the one that created that annexation up into Browse for a wind project. So now picture this, today wind is, power is more valuable than it was back then. Would you want to see 6 windmills there and another 45 of them up the canyon? I decided I didn't. But that's why the zoning's there, is because I requested it. So, that isn't why the zone's there, is to keep industrial by now. That may be why you did it. But the reason it's zoned that is because I want to do wind energy project. The highest and best uses of this is I've done the study and I've laid out the thing so that the safety is there for the children and all of the pedestrians. Is there's no industrial, and let's not use industrial, let's use commercial. There's no residences or people that are using the commercial driving through residential neighborhoods. They're not. Everything is backed up. It is not an island. It is not a peninsula. And generally, when you create those items, you're dealing with 10 acres or less, not 38 acres. And we could make it more than that because it's just kind of a blank slate there that we're designing right now. Higher density, regardless of what you're happening, equals less price per square foot on a residential house going vertical. So having workforce housing out here, it's not gonna totally erase the cost of $2,000 a month. I mean, that's just,
It's the new reality.
it's unreal. But for young families getting in, if the mom and the dad are working, they'll be able to have an entry-level home in this place. Now, sure, there's going to be some out-of-towners come in. That's just the nature of the beast. But our hope and goal is, and Fieldstone Homes too, is to keep this as much as we can for families. That's what drives them up in Utah County. And that's one of the reasons they left California years ago was because of the discrepancy between affordable housing, which down there was $500,000 and less or so. But here it's that. Now, traffic, we've over-engineered it by many, many times. So the only thing I personally can't see anything that would look at it, and I'm a developer, but in developing this and laying this out and structuring it the way it is, I look at it as what's good for the community first. Can I afford to do it? And if those two overlap, just like the retail store that's on lot number 7, I mean, the guys are Zion factory stores, the same ones that are up in Park City, the same ones that are down in St. George. You know what they want? They're contingent upon rooftops, because if there's no rooftops, they're not going to sign. If I need more land, then I'll just cut off that other 20 acres, and that'll be residential too. But the problem isn't, is it needed? The problem isn't, is it a spot zone or is it a peninsula? It really boils down to, is it economically beneficial for the city? I left you 2 documents that economically, that makes a third more sense than any industrial commercial you can put out there. So this is the first step. Whether you want to or not, do I care? Absolutely. Because economically it makes sense for the city and for myself. Design-wise it works with whatever trails they put in there or whatever they do, doesn't cross any industrial. And it's outside of your normal bedroom community. Now, yes, Firelight is an exceptional development. Very well done. I emulate their standards. They're a different market than what we do. And this is needed. So is there any technical questions? These guys are better than that. But if there's any questions for me.
I have a couple. Can you tell us at this point what the price point would be for the homes?
I can tell you that subject to change without notice. You know,
Best guess scenario?
they're going to have an entry price on most of the Commonwealth homes at somewhere high 200s, somewhere between 250 and 300. There's going to be homes in there in their layout. They combine SFRs, single family residences, with some of the higher density to kind of break it up.
Okay.
So there's going to be some homes up there that are going to be 500,000-600,000.
Does the builder are they going to be, or do they have the ability to offer any incentives with a lender package? Like,
So that's,
for instance, there are other builders in the area that are offering 5.5% interest if the buyers go with their lender and $10,000 toward closing. And that's made it so that first-time home buyers can actually get into a home.
so the contractor, Fieldstone Homes, you know, they have multiple ways to economically benefit the first-time home buyers getting in. What you said is just a couple of them.
Well, so I don't understand your answer. Does Fieldstone
Yes,
offer
let me just
something like that or not?
yes. What it is, I don't know the particulars. I haven't ever sold a Fieldstone home. I know what Ents does. I know what Ivory does. I know what D.R. Horton does. I know what, you know,
I mean,
everybody
regular
else.
mortgage lenders hate that because they can't compete with it, but it is helping buyers
I was
get
going to
into
say
homes.
I've been that guy. Yeah.
And I appreciate the questions and everything else, but this is back to general plan.
Yeah, and so
We're
I'll be
we're
done.
It's just a
Changing
general
general plan.
question.
I'll be done if you like.
I know. It's-
No, and the general plan was put in place through public hearings, through input, studies, and everything else. And I'm very, very cautious on changing the general plan after years and years of putting that together, was put together. And I will, Jerry, economically, yes, you're a developer and a salesman. I'll tell you right off front, residence and housing is a major cost for the city. Commercial and things are tax benefit that doesn't take a lot of services. Residence takes all the services you require to provide for those residents, from fire, from sheriff, from human services that you have to give and everything, low income, elderly, everything, schools. And at some point, this city is going to be impacted with the growth of everything. And whenever you do an analysis on a project, you have to look at what revenues come in from that project to offset the services and costs of the city. And this city is not a rich city. I mean, I suspect we're just breaking even, trying to make services and provide services. And growth is always really hard. And I'm pro-growth on everything, but doing it the right way and looking at it the right way and making sure. So I understand the needs. And like I said, I'm putting up grandkids and things in my homes and basements and casitas and things like that to help them get a foot started and everything. I know that you got to make over $80,000 to be able to get into a $299,000 house. And I got 6 grandkids right now screaming at Grandpa. In Utah County, I go up there and see all of these stacked condominiums and townhouses and everything. And I see the cars parked out on the city streets because there is 3, 4 couples living in a townhouse because they can't afford it. They have to share it. And I understand where you're coming from, but I don't think it's a place here for our city. And it's not a need that we need. And we're already providing way beyond with the homes with Firelight. Yeah, and I'm sure there's some other developers coming in and looking at it, but that's not the place out there for that at this time, and that's my opinion.
Is there,
My opinion is we should not change this plan. It doesn't comply. I think it's just a big impact change in this plan, general plan.
I agree. I can't in good conscience say we should change it, given the fact that there's 4 bullet points on here that I can't reconcile in my mind from what's been presented so far.
is there any place in the master plan where we could conceivably do any kind of high density
There will be plenty of high density in Firelight.
in Firelight that's accessible to younger couples?
On page 29, it talks about if we want to have moderate income strategies, one of them is to zone or rezone for higher density or moderate income residential development in commercial or mixed use zones near major transit investment corridors, commercial centers, or employment centers. That's in the general plan.
That seems.
So
to
for
fit
my
this
mind,
spot
we
perfectly.
could easily change this.
Yeah.
So I'm a little reluctant to move because I feel like I would be moving against you two.
Well,
Yeah.
I feel the opposite.
Okay, we get to vote, right?
Yeah.
we've already had a development for moderate down on Westfield Road and Peachtree, that whole area. where
Yeah, we
the,
did, and it was awesome.
What was the official
friends
name
in
for
there.
that, though? I can't.
They're
remember.
called self-help homes.
Self-help
And they
homes.
do them in,
And that's a
groups.
beautiful neighborhood here, and it's benefited several families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like
That's
to
true.
see something like that going.
I agree.
yeah, but we can't see it unless we allow more residential.
Yeah, but
areas
that's in the
on the general
residential
plan.
area where that was
Yeah, it was already-
approved. That's already
It's
residential.
already zoned for that.
Mhm.
So,
Sorry. I'll say one last thing and.
Oh, yeah, I can do that.
Because I get and I appreciate your concern. Every bullet point that you've addressed is a personal bullet point. The cost to do that nice place down there, you won't see that again because your cost of property is higher. And you know all this, but regardless, this is a great plan. It's been reviewed by many people, and it's been designed with safety, accessibility, and it meets every point that Commissioner Chamberlain brought up. So I'm not going to change your mind. You've already decided. So what I'd ask you to do is make your motion and then move it on, whatever the vote is, to the city council with whatever motion, and yes or no. And I'll live by whatever you guys decide.
And I heard someone say, oh, there's already areas zoned for residential. And I just want to bring up one other thing, because I have been following this issue very closely for quite a few years now. And at one point when I was in Hurricane and trying to hold their city council accountable about it, I said, I keep hearing of affordable projects that get approved and I was like, what, aren't you approving enough of them? Because I want to see them. I want my kids to be able to grow up and live here. And they said, we do approve a lot of them, but it is complicated to build affordable housing. There are plenty. Every builder in this county is out there to get as much money as they can. And so they all want to build to the high end. And if you can find a builder who is willing to do this, they have to jump through a lot of hoops, of which are one of the first, biggest, hardest hoops. They have to jump through this hoop. They have to jump through funding a huge project. They have to jump through their own swallowing the hard pill of making less money because they're working for workforce housing. And most of the builders I've seen that are willing to do it only do it because they believe in it. it's not about the money for them. It's about serving the citizens of Utah. So I know I get kind of fired up, and I hope I'm not too pushy. I'm ready to make a motion, but I'm concerned that I don't want to.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is there anybody here from Fieldstone Homes? We've never seen anybody from,
No, and until it goes to the city council, I told them, you know, as far as them coming down repeatedly, they asked for a Zoom link, and I didn't let the city know quick enough so that they could comment. But really, to open the master plan to zone it residential,
first.
that's the
It's a very
first thing.
basic.
And then absolutely, I won't be the face you see. You'll see either Jason or one of the other members of the hierarchy up there that will map this to fit more in line with, because they're very open and sensitive to what looks and feels right in the city. Knowing that this is outer darkness, so to speak. I'm on the other side of the freeway. I'm a quarter mile from the freeway. So whoever moves out there isn't doing it for comfort. They're not doing it because it's secluded. They're moving out there because they can afford it. And that's what we're going for. It's not, you know, if it's 2.5 acre lots for $2 million down in Washington Fields, sorry, that's not me. So I've said I'm good. Thank you so much. And I appreciate your service. It's not easy being where you're at. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions, comments? I think Jenny said she was going to entertain a motion.
I move that we recommend the approval of the general plan amendment because it fits with our moderate income strategies. And some of our values are that we want open space and to preserve agricultural space.
I second that.
You second the motion?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll have a poll.
Nay.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
Aye.
Motion is denied.
The motion fails. Yeah,
What's that?
the motion failed.
Okay, motion failed. Any other motions?
No,
Okay,
it just
we don't-
failed.
We
Yeah.
just need it. Okay, the motion failed.
So is that how it goes to the city, or do we have to have another motion?
City council.
So, okay, it's a little bit of a loaded question, but it'll go to city council.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can do a motion to recommend denial and then it'll go to city council.
Do we have anybody who wants to put another motion to the table?
I'd do a motion to deny
To recommend denial.
recommend denial of the zone change.
It's not a zone change, so the general
Sorry,
plan amendment.
General
General
plan.
plan.
Thank you.
We have a second? I'll make a motion to second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Carries. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Discussion and possible approval of sign permit for Yesco submitted on behalf of Sat Brothers Travel Center. Staff?
So if you remember, you had an application for a sign permit for the travel center, and that was denied just based on our limited sign ordinance and the scope of their signs, really. So they filed a variance, and our administrative law judge, Lynn Cresswell, is here. He reviewed the variance and issued a decision. He granted a variance on the signs that he thought did not comply with the code, and based on a few changes that SAP was willing to make to theirs, and then he found some that he, in his interpretation, did meet the code. And so he issued that decision to us. He's here to present his findings to you, and then you will be issuing a sign permit based on his findings to Yesco, because the code requires that the planning commission is the one that issues that approval.
Okay. You have a comment?
So that was a pretty good summary. What happened is on the 1st of April, Yesco submitted their site signage plan, which you reviewed on the 9th of October. You denied the application. It involved 20 signs, some of which were wall signs and some of which were freestanding signs. After the denial, Yesco petitioned me for a variance. They filed a variance application, which I was responsible for considering. The first thing that I had to do is go back to your sign regulation and interpret it or determine what parts of it applied to these particular signs. And that took a little while because the sign standards are found in 2 locations in your sign regulation. So I prepared in my mind a summary of the relevant portions that applied to the particular signs. And then I went back to the 20 signs. As it turned out it were only 16 signs because 4 of the signs didn't have enough specificity in it for me to make any determinations. So it was 16 signs that I looked at. Of those 16 signs, I found that 12, and most of them were wall signs, and there was also a drive-through sign, did comply with the sign regulation. Didn't require any action by me. It was already within code. 4 of the signs, however, did require variance determinations based on setbacks, heights, sign size, etc. One of the naughty issues for the whole project had to do with coloring. Your sign code requires no white background, and it had to be a neutral background. Neither background or neutral are defined. So as an administrative law judge, I do some interpretation vis-a-vis what I saw. I did work very closely with Kelly Harwood representing Yesco. He and I worked together. I determined that most of the signs, these 12 signs in particular, could meet the color and the other requirements. For the ones that didn't meet the requirements, there was the monument sign, which is on the corner of Highway 17 and 1700 North. The 2 entrance signs, one entrance for automobiles and RVs, and the other one for semi-trucks. Both of those were out of code. They were a little bit larger than what the code required, and also the setback was inappropriate. And the significant one was the water tower sign. It was very, very high, but it had to be high in order to be seen by the freeway. So I got proposals from Yesco regarding what's called unreasonable hardship, and I processed that, and I determined that in each case, there was in fact unreasonable hardship. So at the end of the day, I found that either through compliance with the code or through my determination of variance, that all of the signs, 16 of the signs could be approved. The challenge for me is I didn't feel, and I talked to Emily about this, I didn't feel I had the unilateral ability to issue a sign permit. So I talked to Emily about bringing it back to you. She and I prepared this document. It's a proposed sign permit that you would review, answer and ask any questions you have. And if you agree with it, then you would adopt it and approve it. It then would become the action of the city authorizing these 16 signs. Let me just briefly go over the sign permit that we worked on together. It does identify each one of the signs. The first 1, 2, 3 signs on the list on that first page are approved with variances approved by me. In other words, they only qualify if my variance stands in place, which it does. The rest of the signs meet the code. I've also put on the second page something interesting. Within your sign regulation, there's several signs that do not require a permit. And so technically, this permit doesn't have to refer to non-permitted signs, but I think for the benefit of Sapp Brothers and Yesco, it's helpful to bring all of the signage permitted and not required permitted in the same document. The footnote on the first page identifies what actions I took as a variance authority, approving various variances for setbacks, square footage, and the height of that water tower sign. And then in footnote 2, I did ask for some supplemental or clarifying information from YESCO that wasn't in this document, and they provided that to me. So I've incorporated some supplemental materials into both my decision and my recommendation to you. That's, and as Emily knows, I spent 3 weeks of my life working on this, so that's a very, very short summary of what we went through. YESCO was amazing, professional team, responded appropriately and professionally all my questions, and I felt at the end of the day that I could make a recommendation to you. Going back to your general plan, it was interesting. I'm a very experienced, seasoned local government attorney and now administrative law judge. I always look at the general plan first. Your general plan has 2 things in it that helped me. Number one, in the commercial section, it talks about the need for development on the west side, specifically Anderson Junction, and that's exactly what we're talking about here. So the general plan favored these kinds of things. The other thing the general plan said, which was kind of interesting, that they said the zoning code should be used as a flexible tool to adopt as appropriate projects. Well, the only flexible tool, so to speak, in the zoning code is the variance process. And so in essence, the variance process was used appropriately, consistent with the general plan, to approve these. Now, I do variances for other cities, and I'm telling you, it's not always slam dunk. You don't always approve a variance in every single case, but I felt that the justification given to me by YESCO met the reasonable standard that I had to apply, and I approved each one of the variances based on undue hardship. The last comment, and I've talked to both Ben and Emily about this, your sign code was developed primarily for this developed area of Tokerville. It really didn't anticipate what's going on in the highway commercial. So with a fairly modest amendment to your sign regulation, I think you could anticipate and maybe avoid these kind of things in the future with some code amendment language. And so, questions? I've just summarized this as best I could.
So one question, is Sapp Brothers okay with the corrections that you requested and that YESCO made?
They are. Yes.
Okay.
There are these 4 signs. They were actually on the diesel service. They represent vendors that will be providing products that were future sign. I felt uncomfortable either recommending or approving those because we didn't have the coloring, we didn't have the wording, we didn't have enough information, and so they're placeholders. It's my anticipation that when those are ready, they can come back fairly quickly with all this in place and ask for approval from the Planning Commission for those.
They'll need approval, or it's just?
I think there's a permit application and approval process that falls in the code under the Planning Commission. Is that correct?
Yeah, as far as what's needed tonight, just signing off on the permit. So he's explaining the basis for the variance that he granted, and what's needed at this point would just be us signing the actual permit.
Yeah.
Permit memorializing his decision.
Good.
Any other
I
questions?
think it looks, thank you for all your work. I think it looks amazing.
I actually, I love this stuff, so it was fun. Each one of these and I have been doing this for years. I'm St. George City's Appeal Authority and San Juan County and other jurisdictions, and every single one of these is new. I mean, and so it's almost like intellectually you have to go back and reinvent where you're at and where you're going. But in this case, it was a good experience, positive experience, especially working with YESCO. I've worked with other sign. Well, I won't go there. YESCO is a very positive partner in the sign business and has a strong reputation throughout the entire state. I've worked with them before, so.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the sign permit for Riesco on behalf of Sapp Brothers Travel Center as presented based on the findings and recommendations outlined in the April 30th, 2025 decision issued by Administrative Law Judge Lynn Cresswell.
I second that.
Second.
Sounds great.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Get them up, get them open.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
Okay, item E4, discussion of possible approval of lot size and setbacks on a NPDO modification application and site plan for residential plan, planning area 6 within Firelight NPDO. Staff?
Yeah. So this is the first site plan being submitted based on those combined work meetings that we had and the subsequent restrictions that we adopted. So they're bringing to us kind of a 30,000 foot view of planning area 6. And to clarify, this one will not be 55 plus. Not all of Firelight development will be 55 plus. So this will be
That's what
a sub-developer. Yeah. And so the planning commission's role for approving these site plans based on our NPDO ordinance is just to look at the lot sizes and the setbacks. So the lot sizes they're entitled to just based on having a development agreement, as long as it falls within those restrictions. And so I attached those two there. We can go through them if you want, or Jeff can explain it. But this just kind of shows us frontages, which is one of the requirements that you'll look at, and that's kind of how we gauge the lot sizes, right? And at the bottom of the overall site plan, I can scroll to it, they show typical setbacks. And so they're just showing us that all of their typical setbacks will at least meet our pre-approved standards.
So I understand that because we adjusted those setback requirements and everything, then we don't have a minimum lot size, but they have to.
So what we did was we adopted MPDO restrictions, and in that document, we adopted pre-approved standards for development. So kind of like minimums, but we're calling them pre-approved. So if they meet or exceed those pre-approved standards, then they've checked the boxes, right?
Okay. I also understand that we were still limited to what was in the development agreement with them, that they could only do so many homes in the Firelight system.
That's true as far as what's in front of Planning Commission today. The scope of Planning Commission's review should be making sure that the application complies with lot sizes and widths. So that's the issue we're looking at today. But you are correct. There's other limitations that they'll have to abide by too.
Right,
This
they
is
have
not
to.
it.
So.
Yeah.
But then you said setbacks, but you just said lot sizes, and we really don't know what those lot sizes are, just as long as they are in compliance with the setbacks and requirements.
So I didn't review
the
this,
lot-
but they did depict the lot sizes and widths.
The lot
correct?
sizes are shown in the plan set.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what's being evaluated is, did they show the lot sizes and widths? Did they meet or exceed those pre-approved standards?
But to your point, Dean, like, as you can see in the NPD ordinance, they can do
Right,
any lot size that they want.
okay.
As far as this planning area 6, this is geared to young families, and the smallest width of the lot is 50 feet wide and 100 feet deep. And that still gives you a building area of about 2,000 square feet. So you can still get a decent sized home within that area.
And that's typical what lot sizes are on most reduced subdivisions now.
But you can see too the open space they're providing. There is a park in this planning area. They're calling it active recreation area right here, and that will eventually be dedicated to the city. So this will go to city council after you, and they'll look more closely at making sure they're meeting their open space requirements and all the other things that they're required to fall into it within the MPDO and the development agreement.
Yeah, ponying off of what Emily said, she summarized it perfectly. This is the first step. So your ordinance requires that Planning Commission specifically approve lot size and width. Make sure that they meet or exceed these pre-approved standards, but this isn't it. It'll go to City Council, and City Council will evaluate a number of other things. So this is not the end point by any means.
Yeah.
Any commissioners have some questions for staff? Anybody?
lot 103 says it's 43 feet wide.
Yeah.
Everything else looks,
There were a few more
Are
too,
there
so
a
we were
few of
gonna
those?
just, your motion should be conditional upon them fixing them, but yeah,
Okay.
we caught that just right before this.
I think some of those catch just like a straight line before it goes to a curve, but all of them should meet the 50 foot.
visually, it still looks 50 feet
Yeah.
wide, but it's just a drawing, so.
Yeah, we just caught it right before the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for catching that.
So is this is kind of off subject, but this whole area will not be 55.
Yeah, and this is all geared
This
towards
will be
young
open to
family.
families.
Uh-huh. And I
Awesome.
mean, 70% of this development is geared towards a more economical housing. You do have some bigger lots in there. There is some of the bigger lots will allow for like a 5,000 square foot building pad, but 80% of that is geared towards lower income.
That's great.
And if you look at the cover sheet, if you're not familiar with planning area 6, on the right side there, it kind of gives you an idea of where that's at. So you can see how Westfield Road comes out to the north side there on the parkway. This is directly south of that, and I guess south and west.
So just for clarification, we go through this process and everything, then they have to go to the city council, which has the say. But then, once they get there and come back, we still have to approve like we did the other sections, phases, or we've,
As they come in, as they come in per phase, yes, it'll come through as a preliminary plat and that whole process.
Exactly, yeah. Good question.
okay. Any other questions, concerns? Entertain a motion?
Scroll up to
I
the,
move that we approve it, but I got to find the wording.
Yeah.
I move that we recommend approval, subject to bringing the, okay,
Jenny's got one here.
Okay.
I recommend.
Hang on,
that-
hang on.
excuse
We're,
me,
this
I
one
move-
will approve. Yeah, planning commission actually approves
We
this.
approve this.
You approve the
Okay.
lot sizes and setbacks.
Okay, I move that we approve the lot sizes and setbacks on this, subject to bringing them into compliance with the,
By this, you mean planning area 6.
yes, planning area 6.
Okay.
Subject to bringing them into compliance with the standards, the MPDO restriction.
The pre-approved,
The pre-approved MPDO restriction.
were there specific spots that we could describe a little better?
This is
Or
the,
do you have
There
an
was
idea of
just
which
a
ones
few
they are?
lots. I mean, it would take me a minute to get in there. You could just add that it was the few lots that were short of 50 feet
Okay,
frontage.
so I move that we accept the proposed lot sizes and setbacks for residential planning area 6, with the exception of the lots that don't comply,
that they
and
comply.
that they do be brought into compliance.
I second that.
We got a second?
I second that.
We got a second? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I adjourn the
I move
meeting.
that we adjourn.
Oh, you moved.
Yeah, let's get a motion to adjourn and then a vote. Yeah, okay.
We have a second. 7:33 PM.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Commissioner Haymore.